Good evening and welcome to the Womxn Show. I'm Lenina Rassool. Tonight we're going to be speaking about women and transport and specifically women and driving. After the break we'll be joined by Joanie Fredericks, the founder of Ladies Own Transport Services that was founded in Tafelsig, Mitchell's Plain, and that amongst other things provides driving lessons to women by female instructors. Now, driving might seem like such a basic issue, but it's a lot more than just getting into a car and learning sort of the technical sequences to controlling that car. As you'll hear later from Joanie Fredericks, women have historically been denied access to driving and to getting their driver's license. And even today, currently, a lot of women are found to be paying for the car but not driving it. Now, we're going to be speaking about Joanie, about some of the holistic services that she provides in addition to lessons. But before that, let's have a look at what Ladies Transport Services is and why it exists.
Good day, my name is Joanie Fredericks and currently I'm a driving instructor amongst many other things. Those of you who know me know that I'm also a community worker who loves empowerment very, very much. The reason why I'm making this little video today is as an encouragement to women, some who feel that they really don't have it. They don't have what it takes to be able to obtain their driving license. Now I wanna tell you that anything is possible if we want it badly enough. I remember years ago when I got my license, the feeling was exhilarating. It was absolutely powerful. So much so that I decided that time already that if ever I was in a position to help another woman, I would do so, because there is nothing that can top the feeling of being able to say that I've got my driver's license, even if you don't have a car. It is about being able to do things for yourself, being able to be independent, being able to just live life fully without having to rely on another human being to take you here, to take you there. It is about opening new doors. It is about being able to get a new job. It is about being able to get a promotion. It's really just about being able to be you fully and completely without having to wait for somebody else to take you here or there. Unfortunately, many of us believe in the old lie that women are bad drivers. That is not true. It is all about the negative things that people have been telling us all this time, starting from when we were little girls, that women are not supposed to drive and therefore don't even have to worry. And even though some of you attempted at some early stage, there were unfortunately negative influences in our lives that told us that you will never be able to get your driver's license because you see, you are not good enough. At Ladies Own Transport Services, we definitely make sure that we not only teach you how to drive properly and safely, but we also work with you on all of these things that got stuck on the inside. Those things that made you believe that you're not a complete human being, that you're not whole enough, that you're not good enough, that you're not capable enough. At the end of your training here, when we help you to go over the finishing line to get that driver's license, that thing that makes you complete, that helps you become an independent human being, you should also feel emotionally and psychologically intact, because at the end of the day, everybody who is driving now today had to start somewhere, and I can tell you now, there is nobody that can say that they've started and they got in the car and they were drivers. It doesn't work like that. We all had to start somewhere. And for you listening to me, looking at this video, please know that you got what it takes to be a driver, a safe driver, somebody that can take care of yourself, that can drive yourself wherever you want to be, whenever you want to go, wherever you want to go to. You don't have to wait for somebody else, and definitely you must stop believing in the lies that you're not good enough. Check us out on Facebook. Our Facebook page is Ladies Own Transport Services. Give me a WhatsApp call on 0766 210 and definitely connect with me on message as well. I'm happy to take your calls, and I'm most interested to hear your story, because at the end of the day, you're not only another human person that comes for driving lessons. At the end of the day, each person that we interact with at Ladies Own is somebody, and that somebody has a story. And whether good or bad, we would want you to, at the end of your lesson, get out of this car and really live life fully. Ciao, we check again.
Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and tonight we are speaking about women and transport, and specifically women and access to driving and driving licenses. And with me in studio is Joanie Fredericks, who is the founder of Ladies Own Transport Services, which amongst other things provides driving lessons to women. Joanie, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. I was wondering, when am I being invited to the Womxn Show?
Yes, and we're so glad to have you here and to speak about such an interesting topic, Joanie. I'm going to start because I wanted to speak about Ladies Own Transport Services with the driving lessons that you provide. Now, when we chatted offline, you were telling me that it's not just sort of what we know as the technical way of driving, changing gears, checking blind spots. Ladies Own also, looks at how women have historically had a lack of access to driving, a lack of access to cars, and how that has resulted in a serious fear of driving and lack of confidence, which you see when women get behind the wheel. And so that is incorporated into your process of teaching women to drive. So can you tell us a little bit more about Ladies Own Transport Services, the driving lessons, and what type of services you provide?
Well, all of this obviously is a very, very deeply personal experience, and my lived experiences really direct my life. So I think the fact that I grew up in a house where domestic violence was rife and accepted. I mean, I had 6 brothers, all older than me except one. And weekends, they just disappeared, knowing that that was going to be the time that my drunk father would do, the attacks on my mother. And in that time, I started reading intensively, always having a book as an excuse, loving reading, but, always lurking, reading, watching, listening. And I found it weird that the whole community seemed to accept us.
Yeah.
And already when I was, I think, 6 years old, I realized there's something wrong with us. And I think by about 10, I had my mind made up. I didn't exactly know what it meant, but I knew that I was going to be some sort of women's rights lawyer. And that thing stuck in my mind. I was going to be the protector of women. But also something that really, really disturbed me is the fact that we always had vehicles. My father always had vehicles. Sometimes 1, other times 2, but they were always vehicles. And not once were myself, my deceased sister, and my mother giving the opportunity to learn to drive. And I found it fascinating because my brothers couldn't even see over the steering wheel. But, when my father worked, they were the ones to be called to pump here and turn there. And my heart is burning to also. And to be told that this is not for women. And you shouldn't even worry about it because one day you're going to get married. And I'm like, married? I don't even want to get married. But remember, the time that I'm referring to was a time in the 80s when you really didn't have much scope to open your mouth about anything. So most of these feelings I carried with myself. I made up my mind about a couple of things. I made up my mind about the fact that I needed to do something for women. But I think the weirdest thing of all, my mother was a very strong woman. She was a shop steward, revered to by men in the workplace. She was a leading shop steward. People looked to her for guidance and advice in the workplace, and then she came home and fell easily into a role as victim. And until this day, I still don't understand it. I don't understand it. But you know what, when I say that I'm fortunate that these things shaped my life, it's really because I think the best person to actually input in any conversation, there must be some form of experience. The fact that I got raped at the age of 15 years old, at the time I wanted to commit suicide. But looking back today, when people say, Joanie, you tried to commit suicide 3 times in your life, I'm like, oh, you know, really? Really? Just look at what I did. I was never going to die. I wasn't wanting to die. I think it was more about a shout for help. Because I never took enough pills to die, you know? If I tried to commit suicide, I always made sure that people knew that I was there in that particular room with the door open. So
Yes.
I really know.
And those are interesting elements when we look at also, you know, sort of suicide and suicide attempts.
Yes. And so looking back, I realized I always had this lust for life. And these experiences were unfortunate, traumatizing. But I think in my case, it was needed. If we look at who I became.
Yes.
My dream of becoming a human rights lawyer was shattered. But if that didn't happen, I might not even have been in this country. And today I got to live on the ground. I got to be there. I got to be the lawyer, the advisor, the counselor, all in one. And I get to be the person that stands in the gap for those women who don't have a voice.
And the driving instructor.
Oh, yes, and the driving instructor. And the driving instructor.
So, okay, so you went from, I mean, this is very interesting. You went from noticing all of that things, and it's not everyone that does notice. I didn't, for instance, you know, think about it that much in terms of driving. But I know I was very resentful. I could never understand how boys could just get into a car. You know, they do.
Yeah.
They just get into a car and they know this is the gear. I got into a car, knew nothing, was terribly afraid, and very, very paranoid about it. You moved from that space, being told that driving is not for women, to now owning a company that gives driving lessons to women.
Oh, no, really, I think the one singular experience that stands out into where Ladies Own took me is, I remember that I had to work by myself to get my own driver's license. None of my brothers said, come on, let me teach you. You know, in those days, people just teach each other. And that experience was so powerful. The day that I passed, just being able to have a license, not even having money for a car, not even thinking about buying a car. That was the most powerful experience, and that is the thing that shaped the foundation of Ladies Own. Also, for many, many years, I did work around workshopping women around issues of domestic violence. Those painful things, creating safe spaces where people could speak, and then go beyond and advising and putting up the systems where women can get assisted. Because I'm not your talk type of person. We talk and then we do something. And the one thing that kept coming up, you know that one question, when women are trapped in domestic violence situation, why don't you leave?
Yes.
That is the one question that people ask. And I found that women said that, if only I could drive, because I've got a car, but I can't even drive. Because you see, if I get a car, then I can go and get myself a better job, or I can even get a promotion. So that thing really stuck in my head in terms of what is there to do. Until December of 2017, when I was actually in Menenberg with Rosanna Pascoe, and she had some sort of a celebration for women activists. And as we were sitting around and talking amongst ourselves, I listened to the conversation and it hit me. This is how we can get the social empowerment and the economic empowerment into one place.
Yeah.
At that meeting, I decided I'm going to start giving learner classes. And I met this woman who was a bus driver at Golden Arrow. And I said, hey, how do you think we start this thing? And she said, yeah, I would do the driving and you do the learner classes. Unfortunately, that didn't work out because not everybody that does something does it for the right reasons. It must be with the right reasons. It must be with the right amount of passion. Otherwise, it becomes meaningless. And so after a couple of weeks, he dropped out and I decided to continue. And then I had all of these women passing the learner license, and So my idea was that you pass your learners. Now you go off to some driving school. Go.
Yeah,
get
yeah,
your-
yeah.
And then I find women coming back. I was at this place at Olifantshoek Community Center, and I'm busy with class, and here's these 5 women in my class. And I'm like, what do you want? You got your learners. Oh, no, we came to talk to you. And they said to her, but we want you to take us over the finishing line. And I'm like, what? I am terrified. I don't even know what goes into being a driving instructor. I don't even own a car. And they said, no, don't worry. We'll fundraise for a car. And I'm like, and they did.
Wow.
They did. They started having events and things and started raising money for our car. And they were determined that I was going to be the driving instructor. And I'm like, I've got a license for many years, but I was terrified. And then I said, what should I do? They said, go to ENC and go get a couple of lessons. And then I went, and then I went to pass out as a driving instructor.
That's amazing. And so even this journey, your journey into becoming a driving instructor and Ladies Own, it's a community initiative.
Yes,
It was
is.
funded by the community.
Yes.
The idea came from them.
Yes.
And here you are. And so tell us about what has been the journey since you then, or how did you get from there? So now you've trained to be a driving instructor. You have the car. And now you've launched Ladies Own.
So now I'm on the road all the time, spending hours every day, and literally not feeling it. While people are getting ready for weekend getaways and stuff, I'm like, oh, okay, so what time is my next lesson?
Yes.
I got so into it and I realized this is what I love. I actually love it. But you know, this is not about giving driving lessons. I found that in a couple of weeks. This is really about creating a safe space. I thought that I was just going to help a couple of women and, you know, and see how it goes. And, you know, as sometimes expected in the community, things start with a big bang and suddenly people lose interest. Not in this case. And then I started getting calls from women working in managerial positions. People with money, people in better areas. And I'm like, what? But you've got the money. Why don't you go to ENC and all of those wonderful driving schools? And then I said, well, let's come. And I realized that most of these women that come to Ladies Own, they don't come particularly for driving lessons. There's enough schools. I get people coming from other areas to get driving lessons. I realized they need a place where they feel safe, where they feel respected, where they feel heard, and where they could offload the most harrowing experiences, because I hear all of it. I hear about marital rape. I hear about, you know, there's sometimes when I'm like, I'm just so blessed that I have this personality to take on all of these things and not crumble and still be there to say, come on now, what do we do? What do you think we should do? What do we do? Because at the end of the day, it's about allowing the person the space to make a decision in terms of where we're going to go, providing the opportunities. And so I realized that once people started offloading, suddenly this person that were shaking when they came for the first lesson, they started driving and I'm like, what? And I realized it is because they could drop all of the burdens.
Yes.
Now they can focus. And so there were many times, indeed, yesterday so, where I literally just pulled off. And the woman said, you know what, let's forsake this lesson. I want to talk.
Wow.
And we literally sit on the side of the road and we just talk. And then suddenly she says, I'm ready, can we continue with the lesson? And so I know, I found my niche. This is the space where women who are truly serious about their own empowerment, this is where they come. Because in order for them to become good drivers, safe drivers, they need to be able to find themselves, that strength, that peace, that purpose. And I actually found that I am the purpose for these women. And this sounds like a brag, but I can brag because I don't know if
Because you're doing it.
No, wait. Do you know that I returned from the dead a month ago?
No.
You didn't read this on Facebook?
No, I didn't see that story.
Okay, about a month ago, I had a bleeding ulcer that erupted. And I didn't know any human being had so much blood in their body. And I literally just threw all of that up. And I was literally dying. I was laying in blood.
I do remember reading
Yes.
about that on Facebook,
Yes.
yes.
And then what all of the circumstances, it's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
The ambulance that never turns up arrived within 20 minutes. I was surrounded by people that really did their best to keep me alive until the ambulance came. In the ambulance itself, Auntie Nadima, one of my great friends in the community, sat there with me, and she said that she saw that all machines stopped for exactly 1 minute. And then there was this ambulance worker woman, turned around, looked at the situation, and just really did what she needed to do. And in all of this, I'm finding myself in a place with my beloved deceased brother Paul. And I'm like, Paul, my Lord, I haven't seen you for so long. Wait, let's talk. And he kept running and he kept running. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? I want to talk. And he kept going. And then I got tired and I said, you know what, I don't have time for your jokes. And then I turned back and I realized afterwards, when they told me what happened in the ambulance, I realized that was the time that if my brother stopped, the curtain was going to close on the side.
Yes, and you might not have come back.
Exactly.
But you've come back.
Oh, yes.
And you are still providing a service.
Yes.
And it's an amazing service. Joanie, I want to ask you, you touched on safety earlier. And I think offline we had a conversation. We were speaking about how essentially when women, most of the driving instructors are male. I had 3 male driving instructors during my time when I was trying to get my license, very late in my life. But one of the things is that essentially when you get a driving instructor, you are stepping into the car with a stranger. And what we had said was that even though you can have the most, I'm decent, and I'm using, the most perfect, decent, not scary man opposite you, but essentially you're getting into the car with a stranger, and that person has a certain amount of power over you. And that is very difficult. That's very difficult for women, and even more difficult if you have been a victim of gender-based violence, if you have been a victim of rape, if you have been a victim of stranger rape, how difficult it is to concentrate being in close proximity to a man. So Ladies Own Transport Services has female driving instructors, and that is one of the unique offerings that you give. Tell me about how necessary that is for women in order to feel safe so that they can learn to drive.
It is critical. It is absolutely imperative that women, especially women who are nervous and who had bad experiences, come to Ladies Own. Because I found that, and I think it's because of what I bring to the table. I'm tuned into women's feelings. I'm tuned into such an extent that I can literally hear the fear in people without them having to voice it. And some of the stuff that comes up is that people come from other driving schools and they say, wow, I had 10 lessons or 20 lessons with this other place, and for the first time I feel relaxed. And I'm not shaking. And I'm like, what do you think? So I give them the opportunity to think. And they are telling me that, you know what? In my other driving lessons, I was so concerned about, and they literally watching the instructor's hand, just in case, is it not going too far? Is it not touching unnecessary? The way they are talking to them. So I found that some of these women are so scared of being molested or harassed that they actually miss the whole experience. Yeah. And then the other unforgivable thing is that driving instructors get in the car with somebody that's going to be behind the wheel for the first time, looking at them for protection, safety, guidance, and out is the phone. And they then let this person drive all over the show with no instruction, no guidance, no support. And many of these women are telling me, yesterday I had somebody that was somewhere else for 20 lessons. I'm like, but how is it that I still need to teach you about clutch control and the biting point, about stopping properly? She said, because my instructor just said, drive. And so she has spent a hell of a lot of money just driving around. But there's no way that you can get somebody behind the wheel and say, drive. No, because the fundamentals of teaching somebody how to pull away successfully every time when they want to, of stopping every time they wanted to. No instruction can get, you can't even start driving on a road if you didn't teach the fundamentals. Exactly. Because I don't care how many miles or kilometers you are going to drive, at some point you need to stop. And then you need to be able to pull away seamlessly. We know how taxi people can be. Oh, look at this woman. Go home. Holding us up. What are you doing behind the wheel? And so I'm very, very aware that my students are not going to be attacked by other motorists shouting at them. So it is really, really important that people get to know the fundamentals, because only then can they become really empowered enough to enjoy the experience.
Joanie, we need to take a quick break, but we're going to be back with more after this. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and tonight we are speaking about women and transport, and specifically women and driving. And still with me in studio is Joanie Fredericks, who is the founder of Ladies Own Transport Services based in Tafelsig, Mitchell's Plain. So, Joanie, we were speaking about before the break about sort of the women taking driving lessons and where the male's an instructor, and there's a power imbalance there. Yes. And so you were listing some of the things, which is, women have come to you after they've had up to 20 lessons and saying they didn't really learn the fundamentals. Often a driving instructor will come in and get into the car, maybe just get onto their phone, which are things that could happen with anyone. It's that is a notion of, I'm sure those driving instructors were not taking the lessons seriously. But there's the other power dynamic, which you also mentioned, women especially who have been through gender-based violence, who are very afraid, who aren't able to concentrate on the road. And you're also speaking about sort of the holistic services that Ladies Own provides, which is also a sympathetic ear, that sometimes trauma is what prevents women from being able to learn properly, because they've got all of these heavy loads on their chests. It took me very long to get my driver's license. And listening to you now, I'm thinking those could be some of the reasons. But one of it was also that we just didn't have access to a car. Yeah. Driving lessons are so expensive. I had to wait until I graduated to be able to afford them. And then even then, only spent up to sometimes one lesson a week, so that would be 1 hour a week, or up to 3 hours if I had money. And still I failed my first time and second time. I wanted to just come to, we were speaking outside of the show also about some of the barriers that prevent women from getting their license. So for me, it was not having a car at home, not having exposure to the road, and money. You were speaking about culturally, there's still a culture of women not being able to drive, and that some women come to you and take driving lessons in secret.
Yes.
So tell me about that. Why are women being prevented from driving, and what are some of the other reasons that you found women struggle with getting their license?
Look, the patriarchal system is still very rife. Especially now in the COVID time, when people are more forced behind closed doors. Perpetrators, as they've got a ball of a time. Because women are being kept away from support systems because of COVID, they literally get away with whatever they want to do. And so I found that many of these women are actually the providers in the home. They pay the bond, they pay the car, they literally take care of everything. And then here is the husband in charge of the key, not wanting to support her, not wanting to teach her, and literally abusing her to such an extent that this woman sometimes has to look at how some other women sit next to the husband while they are driving. And some of these women contact me, and then we arrange to start doing lessons in secret. And I support that because if we look at the at domestic violence in all its nuances, it takes place in many different forms. And I find that some of these women are so scared of unexpected sounds because they got used to being shouted at home. So all of these things needs to be in place. You need to prepare the table properly before you can even do the driving lessons. But let me also make it clear that this is not about male bashing. This is about the reality that women instructors can be equally bad. I have seen people being shouted at. When we go to the yard where we are teaching people to park, to prepare for the test, how women and male instructors leave that poor student there, trying to park alone while they stand there and chit-chat with other instructors. I personally had to go and help out a couple of students out of the parallel parking where they got not and nobody is taking care. I have heard, and I actually intervened in a couple of cases where the instructors stand there, hey, you stupid. And I'm like, this is not what you're going to do. You are not doing this.
Not a conducive learning environment at all.
And I will stop your lesson. You know, I'm an activist. I will do whatever it takes. But I am not going to stand by and watch you and be a witness to you abusing a woman that has come to you for support. And then we have these women saying, oh, kyk vir haar. Vir wat wil sy het aan 'n man en kinders. And so these are some of the reasons why women are taking their lessons in secret. Some of these women say, don't pick me up in front of the house. Can I meet you in promenade? Because nobody must know. And when I drop them, it must be at some place. They'd rather walk home. Because they feel that they want to do this and then go and present and say, I've got my license. So it's not only males. It is not only what happens in the house with the husband, the father, the man-child. It is we women are very, very, very part of the abuse that our learner drivers face. And I bear witness to how many came crumbling to me, expecting that I was going to shout and grab the steering wheel and pull up the handbrake when they make a mistake. I'm like, no. I'm talking to you because how powerful for somebody. Yesterday I had somebody shaking, praying aloud, going all sorts of places in the head. I'm like, I'm right here with you. Just breathe. Just breathe. Drive. Clutch in. Pull away. Stop. And like, I can't. I'm like, I'm here with you. And never grabbing that handbrake. Because it is so disrespectful, so disempowering. Because what we need to do is we need to empower this person that come to you, this lady, this shaking, scared person, into realizing that I can actually stop the car when I wanted to stop.
It's interesting, it brings up almost, if you think about it, you know, a car is something that you need to control.
Yes.
And women often are controlled.
Yes.
And so it's also finding those elements between, you know, I can see how it's empowering. I mean, I've been driving for a few years now, but I can almost see exactly how empowering it is to be able to know that you can control something.
But there's proof. There's proof. Danny Paulse is the manager of Spur in Promenade. And she came to me a couple of years back to say, Joanie, you know what, I'm the manager, but I feel so disrespected. I feel so small.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? She said, because all my staff has license and I don't even have learners.
Oh, wow.
And she came to me in the lunch hours, very, very secretive. Can you teach me my learner? So she got the learners. And then she got and after she got the learners, I saw there's a new way of walking into, you know, you can see there is this. And then when she got the license and I went to her work one day to go and visit, she's like really in control of herself.
Yes.
Empowered. And in such a nice way that you could see how the staff now respect her. Because remember, it wasn't the staff. It wasn't their fault. It was her. Because she was so bathed in her feeling inadequate, in feeling that she started, you know, expecting that people disrespected her. Yeah.
Or to judge, expecting that people judged her because she didn't have a license. Yeah.
And then having to call an Uber to go and to go from her store to another store, to go to the meetings with the big bosses, and it made her feel so small. And then a couple of weeks back, she came to me, to my house with this big car. This SUV, and I'm like, what? This is like, this is my car, and you are the first person to see this. And I'm like, what's going on? And I mean, you know, I used to give my lessons in the small ATOS vehicle, and then it's really big.
Yeah.
And she really made it work in the small vehicle. And then when she came with this vehicle, she said, you must know I'm a big girl, and I need this. And I'm just to see somebody that was so scared of getting behind the wheel for the first time. Now being confident and comfortable to be in this big SUV and really taking the streets on, but really becoming her own person in her role as manager. Being a woman of stature, really. So I noticed that successfully teaching a woman to drive also empower them in their workplace, in their home, because a lot of these women are being disrespected by children in the home. And as they grow, in terms of starting to become empowered, you hear stories like, "Ek het vir daai mannetjie gesê." So, and I'm like, yes. And I'm just smiling and I'm like, yes.
I mean, that's fantastic, Joanie. One of the other things, I mean, now that you're bringing up sort of, driver's license in the workplace, and one of the things you said earlier is that it brings together, an economic solution and a social solution. And the thing is that not having a license it is a barrier to women getting certain types of work.
It's true.
And getting their license opens up, I mean, even a report I recently read about women who have become Uber drivers, have been able to become Uber drivers. There's not much, there are still safety barriers. This report specifically said that, one, it gives them more flexibility because most women are mothers and are looking after children, and so, as a driver, they can work out their own schedules and around dropping the kids at school and making sure that they're fed. But the other thing is that it restricts them in terms of when they drive, in terms of when it's safe, and who they drive. But tell us a bit about women, how getting a license helps women economically.
I mean, there's many, many, many messages on my phone where women are saying, "Joanie, I've been offered this job, this transfer, this promotion. All they say I must bring is my license." There is a young woman who is going to study environmental studies in another province, and she is working so hard. She is giving it her everything. She's so committed, because this is going to open the door to study at that esteemed university, which is going to open up her whole career path. So there's a lot of women that say, "You know what, I'm now in my mid-years and I've worked all my life now, I'm retiring and now I want to learn to drive." But there's equally a lot of youngsters that say, "I need this license." There's a young woman that wants to become a law enforcement officer and she needs the license. There's another one that wants to become a police officer and she needs the license. So I take my work very, very, very serious. And then when I think about somebody like Nikki, who came to me after having been to 6 different driving schools.
Yeah.
Really saying to me that, "Joanie, listen, this is it. I'm coming to you, this is where I've been. You are my last hope." And really placing that burden on my shoulders. And I decided I'm taking this on. But I think one of the reasons why we are making it possible for women to really grow is that I make it clear that this is a partnership. It's 50-50. I'm going to teach and you will take it in. You will go home and you will review, you will do your homework. And when we come back together, you need to show me. You need to talk, because remember, driving is it's a learned skill.
Yeah.
It's like anything that you're going to write in school or university. You need to remember. And so when they take their responsibility, they're part of the 50% of the partnership seriously. It becomes so easy. Because it is about, remember, K53 it's about self-defense. It's about protection of self and other road users. And so by them studying and reviewing how they did in this lesson and what they did wrong and all of that, really makes my work so much easier. And I encourage people to talk loudly to themselves. Some of them feel silly, but they get into it and suddenly they start talking all funny things and I'm like, my God. So it's really such a free time.
Yes.
And luckily, our testing examiners are used to women talking and even men talking loudly. Because this is another skill that I'm teaching them. In order to remember, because remember, the test period is a very, very, very nerve-wracking time.
Yeah.
And so I say, talk to yourself. Because then you block out this unfriendly looking examiner. Because you are not here for him or for her. You are here for you. And I really want to talk about my ride-share business.
But before, I want to share actually one of my experiences with the viewers at home. So the second time I go for my license, I'd failed the first time on the hill, which was the first thing. And the second time I go for my license, I know I failed the first time. And you know what I do? I put the car into reverse. And I don't roll back. I drive back over the hill instead of going over. So that's an instant fail. And I'm sharing that because it is really scary to go for your license. And you feel, I mean, I actually burst into tears. I'll never forget. I burst into tears with the instructor. I could barely sign the page to say. And I was so embarrassed about it, you know. And I will say, you know, what was again, you know, a sort of secondary trauma, if I might use that, is that I failed that license and I asked the instructor.
The examiner.
No, I asked my instructor. Actually, the first time I failed my license, I asked my instructor, well, I didn't use the full hour. Can you drop me at home? And he said to me, no, you didn't pay for the time.
Wow.
You paid for the test. It's not my fault you failed the test within the first like 10 minutes. And I had to drive home in tears in a taxi. I had to get in a taxi and drive home in tears. And I remember I got to my front door, my mom opened, you know, and I fell into her arms and I just cried. And I'm sharing that story because when I heard about Ladies Own and when we were speaking about sort of all of these holistic things that you are adding to the service, I really appreciate that. And I think that a lot of women, that is really, really important to women in terms of the environment that they provide. And I think it's important for our viewers to know that if they want to go for their license and if they are with an instructor, to think about the type of service that they want to get from someone. And at that point, I was not assertive enough to be able to say anything to this guy.
Yeah.
I was not confident enough to push back. I just went home and then, you know, got a different instructor the next time and then failed again.
Look, one of the things I want to point out, which is very, very clear, people must start becoming assertive. When you pay to use a driving school's car, you are actually paying for your instructor to be there with you, to literally be there in the presence. Remember when the test begins, the instructor is being told to stand aside. But you know how much it means for this nervous person to just look to see, there's my instructor. Because it empowers them, it makes them feel safe.
Yeah.
And so I've heard many stories of women going to Cape Town, failing there, and then the instructor disappeared. They paid for the car, but the instructor removed himself. And they make it's almost like it's your fault that you failed.
Yeah.
And that aftercare, not everybody passed. 2 days ago, a woman failed. You know what? She blanked out. She was so nervous. She forgot. She did the alley docking perfectly. She went in, and she just forgot to counter steer.
Yeah.
And the beauty of this was when she came, she was in tears, but she said, Joanie, I know where I made the mistake. Now that is empowering. Because she was ready, but it was just that she was too nervous. Because remember, they are now seeing this, and unfortunately, not all of the examiners comes in a good mood to work.
Yes.
And they're looking very stern. And some of our learners are still looking for approval. Is this? And you're not getting that from them.
And that is a big thing for women.
Yes.
You know, approval seeking, unfortunately, is one of the things that we need to overcome, and that works with assertiveness. Joanie, before we go, I do also want you to speak. So we've got Ladies Own Transport Services, which provides the driving lessons by female instructors for women.
Yes.
And then you've also launched Ride Share.
Yes.
And that is basically, I'm going to say, I mean, I'm not floating anyone, but an Uber service for women by women.
Yes, something like that.
Something like that.
Some
But not
people
exactly Uber, there's no app. But tell us about how the ride share works.
Oh, it's really just a service that I provide for the safety of women in public transport. And it's not even about, you know what, it's not even, I want to say it's not even a taxi service. In the beginning, people said, are you not scared at a taxi? And I'm like, I'm no competition to them. Because I'm not a taxi service. You know what, I am a safe space for women to travel from point A to point Z. And it is just such a coincidence that I'm using vehicles. Because if there was another means, I would have used a better means as well.
And you know, Joanie, I mean, we don't have we've got 2 minutes left of our interview, and I think that we do need another show to speak about safety and public transport. Me also, I'm afraid to use rideshare. And I'll say that out loud. I mean, I know most and all of my friends actually, they will take an Uber or a Bolt or a rideshare and whatever, but I am so afraid of it. And so afraid of having a bad experience that having one specifically for women, by women, is very exciting to me. But we have to go. We've got 1 minute left. Do you have any advice, just 2 points to give to women who want to go out and get their license?
I just want to say to the sisters who made it, and you are one of them, please support our scholarship fund for those students, those women unemployed who desperately want their driver's license and they don't have the money. Because it breaks my soul when I get these messages and I literally cannot help everybody. And right now we do have a Thunder Fund campaign to try and raise money so that we can broaden out and expand and really make sure that we are all over. Because people from KwaZulu-Natal have said to me, Joanie, can I start working with you? And I'm very excited to say that we serve women across cultural, language, racial barriers. Our service starts in Edgemead. So we have our first white driver. And this is significant because when people think about Uber and taxi services and this and that, we always think about either a black woman or a colored woman because it's supposed to be below other races. It's not so.
So thank you so much, Joanie. We are out of time. Please stay tuned. After the break, we're going to have a look at the Thunder Fund campaign that ladies-owned transport services are running. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and we're almost out of time. But before we go, we want to play this short video showing you the Thunder Fund campaign by ladies-owned transport services and how you can support women who do not have the funds to access driving lessons. Let's have a look.
I started ladies-owned transport services 3 years ago, and it's really just an extension of my work for the fight against the violence against women. I mean, I've been very vocal, very, very active all my life. And I've got a particular emphasis on fighting sexual violence against women, and I guess based on the fact that I've been raped 3 times in my life. Ladies-owned transport services started out providing learner classes and driving lessons, and recently in January, I also added a service called the Rideshare Services for Women, and that was aimed really at safe public transport for women, because over the years, too many times, we hear stories of women being sexually assaulted on public transport.
So after a long day's work, being all tired, I can lie down and sleep, something that you can't really do when you're taking public transport or even the Uber, knowing that I am safe and I will not be violated or anything bad, will happen.
Before I joined, I was unemployed for almost a year. The income that I'm earning here has been a big help to me. It helps me with every bit that I get, every cent that I get helps me because it's something that I never had.
Over the past 3 years, especially in regards to women that got their license, many of them call me and send me messages to say that they finally have this new job, they finally have this promotion, and many could indeed find their first job ever. For me, really, it stands out that men in particularly are writing to us to say, thank you, Joanie, for making it possible for my children, for my girls and my wife to go fearlessly wherever they need to go. So at the moment, LOTS provide the driving school as well as the rideshare, and I am really very excited. So I'm going to say right now that we are planning to start a mechanic workshop as well, where we will be able, the women ourselves, to provide mechanical services. Currently, we are attempting to do crowdfunding to be able to expand our driving school and to buy more cars. We found that a lot of people are coming to us because they like this family type of empowerment atmosphere that we have here. And we really, really need more cars to be able to service the community properly. One of the things that really is needed here is that many times I get people writing to me to ask for free driving lessons. And so I would like to be able to provide scholarship to people that cannot afford driving lessons. Ladies Own Transport Services was started without cash in the bank, without cash on hand. And so it has always been a struggle in a day-to-day situation. Yeah, I'm just really hoping that people like what they see here, that they like what they read about us, and that they give us a chance by supporting us.
And that's all we have for this evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lenina Rassool. Good night.